You ever feel that? That overwhelming sense that the world is just too loud, too chaotic, and it's all hitting you at once? In those moments, what we're all really longing for is a quiet soul, a sense of unshaken rest. But how in the world do you find that when everything around you just won't quiet down? Well, let's dive right into that question. Now, these words from Psalm 62, they sound like the goal, right? I mean, this is that state we're all after, a soul that can genuinely say, I shall not be greatly shaken. It feels like this beautiful, far-off dream. But what if it's a lot more accessible than we think? So this is where we've got to challenge a really common assumption. We read verses like that, and we picture someone writing them while sitting peacefully by a stream. But the truth? This is not a calm life psalm. Not at all. It's a chaos life psalm. It was written by King David during a time of intense betrayal and unbelievable pressure. So to really get to the heart of this, we're going to break it down. We'll start with the noisy, chaotic world David was living in. Then we'll look at how our own minds interpret chaos. From there, we'll talk about where our hearts run for safety, what our will can actually do to surrender, and finally, we're going to land on a super practical tool called C.A.L.M. All right, let's start right there with the real context, a world of noise. To really understand the peace David found, we first have to understand the utter chaos he was facing when he wrote these words. I mean, think about it. David was facing actual attacks. People he probably trusted were spreading lies about him. His life felt fundamentally unstable, unsafe even. And yet, somehow, in the middle of all that external chaos, he found this internal posture of incredible stability. The question is, how? David's world is key, but so is ours. And that brings us to our second point, the mind's interpretation. Let's take a look at how we process our own unstable world, and maybe why it so often leaves us feeling completely and totally overwhelmed. Now, this is a question that's really worth pausing on. When the pressure is on and your mind is just spinning out of control, what's the narrative? What's that story that it's just repeating over and over and over again? For most of us, if we're honest, the story sounds something like this. This is just too much. I can't possibly keep up. Everything feels like it's falling apart. Now look, those feelings aren't necessarily wrong. They feel incredibly true in the moment. But here's the crucial point. They are an incomplete interpretation of what's really going on. And this is the reorientation our minds so desperately need. Because of what Christ has done, your salvation, your identity, your entire future, it's secure. So even when your job feels unstable or your relationship shift, your foundation, the very core of who you are in Him, is not moving. You see, you're not trying to create stability. You're just standing on the one who is stable. Okay, so that's the mind. Now let's go a layer deeper to the heart's true refuge. Because when we feel shaken, our hearts instinctively run somewhere, anywhere, for safety. Let's talk about where that is. This question gets right to it, doesn't it? In that moment of crisis, our heart is just screaming, what do I need right this second just to feel okay? And the answer to that question reveals where we're really looking for our refuge. And so often we run to these false refuges. We think, if I can just figure everything out, or if things could just feel settled, or if I could just guarantee this one outcome, or if I just had more control, then I'd be okay. But all of these things are completely unstable places to build our security. And this, right here, this is the game-changing shift. Our hearts aren't ultimately looking for relief in our circumstances, they're looking for rest in a person. And the incredible news is that God Himself is your refuge. You're already accepted, you're already secure, you're already held by Him. So we've looked at the mind and the heart. Now let's talk about the will. What do we actually do with the chaos? This is all about the active choice we get to make right in the middle of the overwhelm. See, our default reaction, our ingrained habit, is just to carry the weight. We try to manage it all, react to it, fix it. But David, he models a totally different and honestly, a far more freeing path. He shows us how to bring our chaos to God, to name it for what it is, and then to surrender it. David gives us two really key commands in this psalm. First, he says, wait in silence. Now, this isn't about being passive. It's about surrendering our internal striving, that desperate need we have for control. And second, he says, pour out your heart. This is an act of active dependence, of bringing everything, all of it, to God. And because Jesus has made the way for us, this is our great invitation. We are no longer stuck trying to manage our inner chaos all by ourselves. We are invited to bring our whole, messy, complicated hearts directly to God. Okay, so we've covered the why. Let's get to the how. This brings us to our final section, a practical path forward. I want to give you a simple, memorable tool called C.A.L.M that you can use in those really overwhelming moments. Here's how it works. First, C. Come to God just as you are. Don't try to clean yourself up first. Just come. Then, A. Acknowledge the truth. Remind your mind that He is your rock, not your situation. L. Lay it down. This is where you obey that command to pour out your heart. Name what you're carrying. And finally, M. Move in faith. Just take the next small, faithful step, depending on Him. You know, this verse really anchors the whole message. David isn't saying his stability rests on his circumstances or on his own strength. He says everything, his salvation, his glory, his entire being, it all rests on God, his mighty rock and his refuge. So here's the crucial point we need to walk away with. We're redirecting our focus. The goal is not to achieve a perfectly calm, problem-free life. I mean, that's impossible, right? The goal is to anchor our souls to our unshaken God, who holds us firm even when life is anything but calm. And that leaves us with this one last question to think about. Where is your energy really going? Are you trying so hard to become unshaken through your own effort and control? Or are you learning to rest in the one who already is and always will be completely and perfectly unshaken?